to Lighting for Profits.
All light.
Powered by Emery Allen.
Get rid of your excuses.
Your number one source for all things landscape lighting.
That's where the magic can happen. You can really scale a business.
We really had to show up for each other.
From lighting design, install, sales, and marketing.
You're a scaredy cat salesman, Kurt.
We discuss everything you need to know to start and grow a successful landscape lighting business.
What do you think a hippo has to do with your business, Ryan?
Usually it's some weird childhood thing. Some bully kicks your butt.
I think the key factor here is trust.
Here is your host, Ryan Lee.
All light. Oh, yeah. Guys, we got an awesome show today. We got lined up. If you're looking to start or grow a landscape lighting business, you're definitely in the right place. We got an epic show. We got Mr. Eric Holmgren coming on. And Eric was not born into the landscape lighting industry, really like most of us. But this guy's got an awesome story, some awesome experiences, and some great things that we're going to learn today. So make sure you stick around. We're the number one landscape lighting show in Nashville, Tennessee, you guys. Give it up for Lighting for Profits. I don't even know the name of my own show. So really excited, guys. We're here to educate and motivate to help you dominate. If you would, and you're just feeling kind today and you want to do something nice, go give us a 5-star review. Go to Apple, go to Spotify, do it right now. Put down whatever you're doing, just go do it. It takes just a couple of minutes. It's not the easiest thing to do. If I could, I'd just send you a link, but just go into the app, hit the 5 stars, write something nice. I'd really, really appreciate it. We're trying to grow our audience as much as possible. And plus, it just feels good. You guys know how it is. It feels good to get 5-star reviews. So maybe if you give a 5-star review, you'll get one from the universe today from one of your clients. And again, in just a couple minutes, we got Mr. Eric Holmgren with Landlight Pros out of Nashville, Tennessee. And I've known Eric for a few years now. I'm excited to have him on to share his stories, share his journey. And there's a lot to be learned from that. Want to give you guys a reminder, Secret Summit is coming up August 19th. It's coming up in a couple months here in Park City, Utah. Now, if you want to come to this event, it's a members-only event, so you do have to be in Landscape Lighting Secrets. We just announced today on social media that Landscape Lighting Secrets 2.0 is about to come out, and we're announcing all the details and everything at Secret Summit. So hope to see you there. If you're interested, just go to landscapelightingsecrets.com, schedule a strategy session with me. Just click start now, and basically we'll just talk about your business, see where you're at, see where you want to be, and see what that gap looks like. No matter what, you're going to walk away with tons of value on a clear trajectory. And then if you decide, you know what, maybe I do want to know more, then we could talk about our coaching program. But no matter what, it's just a free strategy session. And then again, if you do decide to be inside Landscape Lighting Secrets, you're going to want to join before that summit because the legacy members are getting hooked up big time. So make sure you check that out if you're interested, if you've been on the fence. And of course, want to thank Emery Allen. So you know this, right? Nothing hurts a quality landscape lighting install quite like flickering bulbs, a yellow fringe around the perimeter of the beam spread, or bulbs that burn out after a few on and off cycles. Don't jeopardize your customer's experience by buying a budget bulb. If you want to go out of your way to provide a world-class customer experience, choose Emery Allen. At the end of the day, it's what's on the inside that counts. So take advantage of Emery Allen's world-class customer service and get 10% off your first order. All you have to do is email Tom G at emeryallen.com. He will hook you up with the discounted contractor price. Just mention you heard about him here on Lighting for Profits. Again, just email Tom G at emeryallen.com if you want the hookup. So, by the way, guys, they got that single source LED. It really does make a difference. You know, you don't have these LEDs competing, and it just makes it super clear. It's like, you know, going from not wearing glasses to putting your glasses on. It's super clear. So check out their single source LEDs. Tom G at emeryallen.com. Thank you so much, Emery Allen, for your support over the years. Okay, guys, I'm going to share a quick story, and then we've got Eric Holmgren, Landlight Pros. The title we came up with was From Music Man to Lighting Maestro. I hope I said that right. But he's both. I mean, he's an artist, right? So he went from being a musical artist to a lighting artist, and now back into music and everything. So it's super exciting. Before we have him on, today I went to Chick-fil-A, which is kind of a normal thing. Like my Tuesday is my Chick-fil-A day. I always hit the drive-through at Chick-fil-A before the podcast. I like it. It's just simple. It's just fast. I know what I'm going to get. And it's pretty much every Tuesday before the show. So, I'm sitting there and I'm like, dude, how do they do this? Like the drive-through at Chick-fil-A is so fast. It's amazing. Like if you didn't know it was fast, you would see the line and you would turn around, because it's like, dude, I'm not going to wait that long in that line. But the line goes so fast. So how do they do it? Well, it comes down to two things. Number one, systems, and two, simplification. How can systems and simplification help this business move that many and serve that many clients in this short period of time, right? It's really remarkable. So think about how simple their process is. Okay, they don't offer that many items. It's chicken. Okay, no burgers, no hot dogs, no onion rings, no gyros. Like it's just chicken. Okay, it's super simple, but they provide this amazing experience, and people are lining up to get there every single day, right? They're not trying to be the cheesecake factory of the world. If you've ever been to Cheesecake Factory, you know what I'm talking about. Like they have so many options, it makes you sick. Okay. So Chick-fil-A does a few things and they do them very, very well. The food is always consistent. Okay. So what can we learn here? Like, what are you doing in your lighting business to streamline your systems? What are you trying to do in your business to offer simplicity to your clients? Okay. If you really want to scale, you can't offer a ton of different product options. Now, the hardcore, like one-sided designers are going to come after me and be like, "What? I can't believe what he's preaching right now." But honestly, you don't want to offer all the different manufacturers. You want to find a few like you want a spotlight, you want a wash light, you want a path light, you want a few specialty lights, right? Keep it simple. One well light, keep it simple. And I'm telling you this based on experience, right? And not to say this is the only way to win, but if you want to scale your business, okay, if you want to be able to build a machine that doesn't rely on you to be everywhere all the time, this is the way to do it. It's through systems and simplification. And you'll be surprised at how good your lighting designs can be, even with this simplified approach. Okay. And best of all, your life will not be chaotic. Okay. Maybe you don't win Lighting Designer of the Year 2024, but you also don't have like a ton of different styles of spotlights on just one job, right? So keep it simple. Now let's talk about Chick-fil-A's process a little bit. So first, you notice when during busy hours, right? When you pull up, there's multiple people meeting the vehicles and they're not waiting for the vehicles to come to that one window, that one bottleneck. Okay? Are you the bottleneck in your business? Does everything have to go through you? Are the people coming to you? So they've completely eliminated the bottleneck in this situation. And all other fast food companies still have this bottleneck. It's like they're not paying attention, right? Now, when you get to the person approaches your vehicle, they ask, their process is simple. It's always the same thing. Can I have a name for the order? Okay. They write down the color of your vehicle, the make or model. They take the order, they confirm the order, they take the payment. I mean, the whole process, if you're just ordering for one or two people, literally takes under 2 minutes. Okay. Then the next step is it's a separate team now is on like the food delivery. Okay. Again, now they're eliminating another bottleneck. And what's cool is this same team is not waiting for you to always come to them. At least the one by me. They're like approaching you. Like they're getting ahead of the queue. It is quite the well-oiled machine. Okay. So think about what you can do in your business to simplify and make sure that you're assigning people to the right roles. Okay. And you're eliminating the bottleneck in all of your systems. Most of, the hint here, the key is most situations, you are the bottleneck. All right. So find as many places as possible that you can eliminate you from your systems. Now, I want to tie this into another experience I just had the other day. I was in my backyard and we're adding some lights to our backyard. And I got my son, he's 11 years old. I was teaching him how to do the lighting shrink connections. And if you haven't used those, by the way, I highly recommend them. They're just an awesome connector. So I'm teaching Max how to use the crimp tool, how to strip the wire, how to use the torch. And I was like, man, why have I've been in the lighting industry since 2007. I've never like shown my kids like how to do a connection. So it's kind of embarrassing. But I'm like, yeah, let me show him how to do this stuff. And so at one point he's holding the torch, he's getting ready to like torch the connectors. And I said, okay, now grab these two connections. And I was trying to hand him some wire and I instantly saw in his eyes confusion. And he's like, well, I could just tell he was thinking like, Well, how am I going to hold more things? I'm already holding the torch, and you want me to use 2 hands to do this. I don't have 3 hands. I could just see this in his eyes. And I realized in that moment that I had failed. Okay. I'd failed to tell him to put down the torch for the time being. Seems so simple. Like, to me, it's common sense, but he's never done this. So the last thing I told him was to hold the torch. So he's holding the torch. Okay. He's following the system that I presented. So how many times in our businesses are people actually following the system that we presented, and we get frustrated with them because they can't figure it out, because their common sense is different than our common sense, right? And so there's a lot of self accountability here. There's a lot of ownership that we need to take as leaders. And so all I said was, okay, put down the torch and then hold these things, right? So he set it down, and now he could easily hold these wires and these connections that I had asked him to hold, right? It just reminded me that when we're building systems and processes, that we need to make them crystal clear, okay? We need to make them so simple that an 11-year-old can do it. An 11-year-old who has no experience, right? Imagine if your systems and your procedures were so clear that an 11-year-old with no experience could do it just by reading the list and following the instructions, right? And just remember that your common sense is not the same as everyone else, okay? You can't assume that somebody is already going to know how to do something. And if they were if they were like you, they would own their own business too. They wouldn't be working for you, right? So, in this experience, just leaving out a simple step like put down the torch could mean the difference between someone getting frustrated with their role. Maybe he gets frustrated. Maybe they don't do their job right because they're trying to do too many things at once, or maybe they even get hurt, right? In your business, this is key. Your business will never outgrow your leadership. So how good are you at leading? How good are you at teaching? Okay, if you're constantly blaming others because they can't figure it out, well, then you better get used to it. You better get used to blaming others, complaining, and dealing with these types of people, right? Or not. Like, you could change it. Okay, the change starts with you. So stop expecting others to be you and start helping others achieve their full potential. When you're building your standard operating procedures, your SOPs, make sure to not leave out steps. Okay, and especially if you've been doing something for a while, you consolidate steps 1 through 10 into one step, because there's just all these automatics. There's these assumed things. There's these things that for you really are just common sense, right? But remember, there was a time where it wasn't common sense for you, that steps 1 through 10 really were steps 1 through 10. So the best way to test your SOPs is to get a greenie, get someone who has no experience, get your 11-year-old son to go through the steps, right? And if they get that confused look on their face, you got to rewrite the steps. Okay. If they're able to go through it and complete the task without asking any questions, then you got a pretty badass SOP. Okay. So, the Chick-fil-A drive-through, it's got to be every Tuesday. That's where, if you want to find me, Lehigh, right off the highway there, I'll be there every Tuesday in the drive-through. It's got to be the fastest fast food experience anywhere, right? And remember, it's run by a bunch of teenagers, okay? And they don't necessarily look like the smartest bunch, okay? And it's not because of the people why your business is failing. It's because of your systems, okay? So the next time you get frustrated with a team member, take a step back, see where the system is broken. Chances are it's something simple, right? And it's most likely not them. It's you, okay? And when I say it's you, I'm speaking to me as well, right? So sorry, not sorry. Add or change the steps to simplify. Just do one step at a time. I used to get so overwhelmed when people would tell me to build my systems and SOPs and all this stuff. You're not going to do this. You're not going to build your entire operating manual in a day, right? It takes time. So just start with one. Okay. Just add a little bit every single day, and you'll be surprised how much further you are just 1 month from now, 6 months from now, 1 year from now, how much can actually get done. So that's my message of the day. I want to encourage you guys to take action on that and learn from your experiences. Learn from, I learned a lot in that drive-through today. I learned a lot from my son the other day. So there's always something to be improving, always something to be learning. All right, guys, it's time. I'm super stoked to have this guest on. Let's get the music going and get him in the show. Welcome to the show, Mr. Eric Holmgren.
I'm gonna be somebody. Oh, hey guys, what's going on?
There you are, just always playing the guitar randomly.
You know.
That's awesome, man. Man, that
But
sounds pretty good.
that is a great song to use as an example, because I mean that is kind of the whole point of this entire system is we're all trying to be somebody. And I love the second line of that too, because it's just trying to trying to break those chains, and that's exactly what this system is all about, which is why I love what you do, because it's catching the entrepreneurial bug, if you will, but doing it successfully, and it's breaking those chains and not just having a business that's a side thing that you do that makes you extra money, and actually becoming your own thing, and then taking that availability to expand it and let other people be a part of that thing, and you can change their lives at the same time, because that's really what it's all about.
Love it, man. Well, I'm excited to have you on. We've known each other for a few years now, and it's just a matter of time. Like, dude, why have we not had Eric on? So I'm excited to have you on and find out who Eric Holmgren is, who you want to be, right? If you would, maybe just kind of let's go back in time a little bit.
Okay.
And start before you were even in the landscape lighting industry, like what you were doing, how that was going, and how, you got into lighting industry, not because you were like, man, I love landscape lighting, I've always wanted to be a land lighter. Like, no, you were doing something else. So let's talk about that, and then how you got into the industry.
Okay. So yeah. So we're in the Nashville area, obviously. And I moved here for the music industry in 2008, and I did it for about 12 years, full time. So I come from the music world, spent a lot of time touring, spent a lot of time playing. I've played thousands and thousands of shows in that timeline. I was doing, over 200 dates a year. And then 2018 came around, and my wife and I had moved into this house that we're in now. And she got pregnant, and she was working at the time as a bartender at Legends down on Broadway in Nashville. So if you've ever been to Nashville, you probably know that name.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That strip is nuts. So she was doing that, making good money. And then she got pregnant, and then we had the conversation, and she was like, I really want to stay home. I want to be able to homeschool our son. I want to be a stay-at-home mother, and I want to change my role and not be involved in this nightlife thing, which is just not going to work for having a child anyway. So I said, okay. So I was playing as a musician at the time, which means I was doing fine, but I was not doing fine enough for the lifestyle that we had to then become one income. So I had to reinvent the wheel, and started a handyman company, if you will. I'm somewhat inept in common sense these days, and I have found that I have a knack for just learning how to do handyman kind of things. Like I know how to do, painting, reconstruction stuff, plumbing, electrical, all that kind of stuff. I just had a lot of background and knowledge, and it's always something that fascinated me. I like being hands-on and doing my own stuff. So we did that. And then I got a call from a couple of my neighbors, and they're like, hey, can you redo our landscape lights? And I was like, maybe. Don't know anything about it, but I'll take a look at it. And so I did some research, realized that it was, wasn't honestly that difficult. So if you're on the fence about that, like it is not that difficult. It's pretty simplified if you get down to it. And so I did them, and I was like, okay, this isn't so bad. I kind of like this. And I had always enjoyed the look of the difference of a house that did or didn't have lighting, because it is significantly different. So I just started doing the research, and I was like, there might be something to this. So I started an actual company that derived itself into landscape lighting, which eventually obviously added on the audio application too, because I came from the music world. But I did it by myself for a few years, and then, or a couple of years, and then COVID hit, and then the music industry went no more for a while. So I had no income coming in that way. So I kind of had to drop all my eggs into a different basket, and I was already starting this. So when I did that, it just started growing. COVID was a really great thing that happened to this industry, ironically, and another, and a lot of service industry applications. So I took it and ran with it. And then got with you in 2021 and just kind of opened my eyes, because at that point I was the guy running the business, the guy doing the installs, the guy who had a helper on his side that he was paying under the table, doing nothing by the book that I should have been, not any way, shape, or form. And I realized that if I kept at that rate, I was going to burn out very quick, because I came from 2 years worth of running the business every week, going out and playing shows and on the road every weekend. I was working over 100 hours a week, killing myself, to then, music industry gets shut down. So this is the only thing I have to do. Then I realized that I have all this extra time. And now it's like, okay, well, what can I actually do with this? So I met one of the guys at a thing at a lighting convention that I went to, and they brought up your name, and then we had our conversation. And I will tell you guys that are listening, I was very, very close to on the fence. And Ryan may or may not remember that conversation, but like, he pushed me a little bit, and I was so close to not pulling the trigger, because I honestly didn't have the money. But the conversation that went into that was that it was a light bulb that it went off in my head. And I was like, if I'm going to truly build a business, then I don't not have the money. So I pulled the trigger, dropped it onto a credit card, figured it out. And the funny thing is, the next job that I sold was a color system. And I was going to sell that job at $7,500 or $7,800, I think it was. And I sold it for 13.5 overnight from signing that contract, because I changed the numbers, and you were like, no, you got to up your price. So I did. I upped it immediately, and I dropped an extra like $5,000 in my pocket right there, and, helped take care of that bill that I thought I had no way to pay for right there overnight.
That's awesome. Oh, that's
So
killer.
it just kind of fell right into my lap. And then obviously a lot has changed since then too. But that's kind of what got me into it and got me into this program, and kind of drove it home that it was it was a necessary piece of it. 100%.
Yeah. That's cool. Well, you mentioned like not being able to afford it. I feel like it's a common occurrence, because most people don't reach out. Most people don't like go to join something and try to ask for help if they're already doing good. It's like
Right.
someone they're just not coachable at that moment. Most people, there are some people, right? But most people are in that same position. They want help, they need help, and then they're like, but I just can't afford it. And it's the people that succeed as entrepreneurs are willing to take those risks. They're willing to spend money on advertising. They're willing to spend money to make money. And the people who aren't, it's not that they can't be successful. It just takes a lot more time. It just takes a lot more time. So
agreed. Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
And I'm a shiny object guy like you, so I don't want to wait.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, it's been really cool to see your progress, and maybe we can talk a little bit about your journey in the lighting world, because you've had your ups and downs too. You've had those moments where you're like, holy cow, dude, I just raised my price. I'm closing deals like crazy. Your sales have gone through the roof. You've hired people. Tell us a little bit about that journey, and then maybe some ups and downs of that as well.
Oh yeah, there's been a lot of that. So that's very true. So, we blew through that. 2021 was there. So a little bit of recap. When I set up with the system, I was doing, maybe about 150,000 a year in sales, not profits, sales. So let's think about that. So I was doing like 150,000 when I came into this in 2021, going from 21 to 22. So 2021 taxes, if you will, that year, we doubled our numbers. So we went from 150 to about 230. Then 2022 season hit. And that's when I really started kicking off. Now there's an up and a down to that. So we went from doing 230,000 to doing 760,000 from 1 year to the next. The problem that came in with that was I got chaotic with things. And then ultimately, I grew to the point where, I had a guy who was working part-time in sales applications doing stuff. And then I had 4 installers in the mix, just burning through this stuff. The downfall with that was, 1, quality control became a little bit of a problem. But 2, I also realized that I wasn't hiring people properly. I was just getting who I could find to hire. And it caused a lot of problems in my overhead and my cash flow, because what we were doing was not dialed in very well. These guys were not efficient. And so we got to the beginning of 2023, a couple of them disappeared on their own. I got rid of one of them, and then we got a couple more in the mix. We ran through 2023, and then the fall season of 2023 hits, which is literally just last year. I fired everyone. It was back to a one-man show because there was no structure, like you just talked about. So I'm really, really glad you mentioned that before we came into this. There was no systems, no structure. There was nothing in place for these guys to have the quality control and to know that you had a system in place that they could follow. And they weren't cutting it. So, and one of those guys was with me for almost 2 years, and I let everybody go. And I started from the ground up coming into the beginning of 2024. 2024 has hit. We've restructured all that stuff. I have revamped that. I just had a meeting this morning. We're bringing on an operations manager. So we're drastically rebuilding in a more structured manner. And I'm playing the opposite role that I was before, because I came into this thinking, okay, now I know how to run a business. Well, as I grow, I need to look like I'm bigger than I am. And in my mind, I thought the more people I have working for me, because what does everybody always ask when you talk to them about a company? They go, well, how many employees do you have? Thinking it's going to make a difference. If you tell them it's a bigger number, they're going to be more impressed by you. It doesn't matter how many employees you have. It matters what your numbers are at the end of the day and what your overhead versus your profits are. So I can tell you that this year, the amount of people that are working for me is drastically lower, but the amount of profits that we're doing and the quality control and the turnover is drastically higher. So nice. My big push on that for anybody that's listening would be, don't overindulge yourself in trying to get too many people to fill that install role because you think you're getting busy and you think I need to just slap people in there because I want to look good and I want to look better for these clients that I'm talking to. Make sure the numbers make sense. Find the guys that can really knock it out of the park, because I can tell you, I've got one guy right now that does the same amount of work that I had for 3 people before. So I'm literally, I was paying those 3 people $62 an hour in total. I've got one guy, yes, I pay him much better than them, but the reality is he's getting paid better, but it's still saving me a ton of money because he's doing the same amount of work that they were doing.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that and being vulnerable. I think it's a common, I remember being there. I remember doing similar things.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was me firing people. Sometimes it was me wait, they didn't show up. They just ghosted me. Right. And the common thing, the common denominator here is entrepreneurs just naturally, we're not good leaders. We're not good managers. We're good leaders. We're not necessarily good managers. So even if your sales, congratulations, by the way, freaking skyrocket, right? Then you start installing, but then it's well, who's managing these people? So I love that you mentioned an operations manager, because there are people that love to do things that we hate to do, that are good at things that we're bad at. And they're operations managers. There's people that can help put in, even if you have a system, it doesn't mean that it's working, right? It doesn't mean that, so who's holding them accountable and who's rewarding them and taking things away if they don't. There's no accountability, right? And so when as an entrepreneur, it's hard, and the only way to learn some of this stuff is experience it. And now you kind of know, okay, well, that worked really well, but then that caused this problem. So next time I need to avoid that or figure out a way around that before we get to that point. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Last year was we had our first, it was our first actual secret summit event, where it was our members only event, and we did it in Nashville. And I called you and I was like, oh man, Eric plays the guitar. I've never heard you. I had heard your YouTube, which, by the way, you guys, go look up Eric on YouTube. There's a song called Jacked Up Pickup. Just put in Eric Holmgren on YouTube, I think. But that show, or that song is like a radio song. I'm like, dude, and I'm like, you know me, I don't know music very well. I don't know any lyrics to any songs. I'm definitely the trendy guy. That song is a freaking radio song. It needs to be on the radio immediately. But I called you and I was like, hey, do you think it would be really cool? And I think someone actually requested it from the group. They're like, oh, is Eric going to play? And I was like, dude, that's a good idea. So I called you. I said, hey, Eric, would you play? And you're
I
like,
think somebody commented on one of the posts on the Facebook group, and they were like, "Hey,
yeah,
we're gonna be in Nashville. Is Eric playing?"
yeah. And I was like, dude, that's a solid idea. So I call you. I'm like, can you like bring your guitar? And you're like, no, I can do better than that. Uh, I can play. I'll jump on a stage on Broadway at AJ's. And I'm like, you jump on a stage? What? Like, I don't even know what that means. And that was the coolest thing ever, dude. Like we go downtown Broadway. And I'd never heard you perform live. I'd seen your YouTube, but maybe it's AI. Maybe you don't know how to sing. Like, maybe it's
Maybe
auto.
I am an AI.
Yeah. And that was, I mean, that was the coolest thing, dude. You jumped up on there. You owned that stage. You you set the audience to a new level. Like everyone was having fun, drinking, all that stuff, but that bar transformed when you went up there and played your set. You played 4 or 5 songs, and you were way better than any performer in that bar. We bar hopped. We went down to all the, like, you were the best one there. Where, like, that was passion, dude. Like, you were in your happy place.
Yeah,
Talk about
it
that.
was.
Talk about your
It
passion
was.
for music, for lighting. Like, how does that contribute to your success?
So when I transitioned, I mean, the idea was that I wanted to build an investment, because the reality was I was coming from an industry where I knew, like, I can't make money unless I'm physically working, and there's a limitation to that. If you don't get on a level where you can get a record deal and you could have, you can make millions. Not saying you can't do that being independent, but it's not as common. The reality is that I wanted something that was a residual investment when I started this all along, and I really wanted to find something that I could be passionate about that still gave me that creative edge. And doing lighting design is very, very artistic. It gives you much like music, where people write it for a reason, is it gives you a feeling. And the goal with this process is we're always trying to accomplish a feeling with our customers. You want to give them something that just knocks them out of this world when they get that reveal point and they're like, oh my god, this is amazing. You want them to feel the same way that they feel when they hear that same song they remember from high school, that just kind of transforms their mind. So yeah, it kind of went hand in hand, because I knew I needed to do something creative. I don't really know how to do anything else. I don't feel comfortable doing anything else. And coming from the music world and being an entertainer, I also knew that it was going to be very easy for me to network with people and just talk to people, because I was used to talking to people, whether there's a microphone in front of me or not. I had a way with just kind of crafting words and putting things together and making people feel a certain way off of that. So I was like, well, what if I can take that same interpretation and do it with this, but now I get to paint a picture, as well as creating a listening fixture, if you will.
Yeah, well, I think it's cool. Like I said, like I saw you like shift gears. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're just kind of like one of us, and then
Mm-hmm.
you got on that stage, and then it was like
It's
superhero.
Yeah, I kind of attribute it to being like acting almost for me, because I like, if I'm not on stage or if I'm at home, realistically, I'm a very introvert type person. Like, I'm not a super outgoing. So when I dove into doing this business, it was the same thing. Like, I needed to treat it that way because I'm not very outgoing. Like, if you put me in a crowd, I'm very socially awkward. It's
That's
one of
true.
those
I'm
it's
just
one of
kidding.
those anxiety feelings. Like, I'd rather be on a stage than in a crowd watching a stage any
Mm.
day. I don't like the feeling being in a crowd. It's very uncomfortable. You kind of get that weird sense of like people staring at you and things like that. Versus when you're on the stage or you're in that element, then you command that position and you control it and you direct it. So I wanted to take my sales approach with doing this and do the same thing with it, to be able to control that and direct these designs and what we did, and basically have something that I could manipulate in a way, so that it was allowed to be on my terms, but with the interaction of the response out of the customer, which is the same thing as the response out of a crowd on what you do when you're on that stage.
I love it. I hope people can take from this that it's okay. Like, it's not that you're being someone different. You're not being true to who you are. Like,
Yeah.
but you got to shift gears. You got to find that 6th gear, 7th gear, like turn into that alter ego. When you're doing sales, you got to get them excited. You're an entertainer. You got to
Yep.
like the guy before you was doing fine. It was just, whatever. If I said, like, if me and you, and let's say I was musically talented, if I could even play the guitar, but it was like, here's the notes, here's the guitar, here's the setup, here's the words, just go sing. Like, there's a difference. There's a complete difference between the guy
Mhm.
before and then when you went up there and smashed it. So it's like, if people can understand that and take that sales approach and understand that you're providing an experience here. If I give you the script,
Yep.
that's not enough. Like, you can't just say these words. You
Yep.
have to get energy. You have to shift gears. You have to show up in a different headspace to make sure you understand this is an entertainment game. We're trying to
Yeah.
entertain these people. You're trying to get them excited.
And I have I relate what I've done to what I do a lot with these customers. I can't tell you how many people we get into conversations and then they find out that I'm a musician in the process of doing that sales pitch to them. And a lot of times that's literally what makes the sale, is because you create the trusted rapport with that. And then you're like, oh yeah, go check, go listen to my stuff and stream it on Alexa and all this kind of stuff. And now they start understanding, they really get to dial into my world a little bit. And I'm opening up to that immediately. So now there's that trust factor that falls into that. And I remember, it was probably a year or two ago, you had somebody on here that was talking about that factor of like getting in with customers and really understanding about them and their lives and building that trust factor. Sometimes even before you have the conversation about what their design is, to where they're ready to hand you a paycheck before they even know what you're doing, because they trust you that much.
Yeah, I love it. And it's crazy. A lot of people are afraid to ask about their clients. And the people I've talked to, I think they're afraid of, like, well, if I ask them what they do and then they tell me that they're a heart surgeon, that then they think I'm going to take all their money or something. It's like, no. People love to talk about themselves. And the more they talk about themselves, the more they like you. They're like, man, he was just so great.
Yep.
And like, you don't have to say anything. And they're like, he was great because they talked about themselves. So
Yeah, and when if you do run into somebody that is a heart surgeon, I mean, to be honest, I actually did. We did a project for the guy who did Steve Jobs transplant surgery. So I mean, you want to talk about high-end surgeons? He's one of the top on the planet. So, but having conversations with them, when I found that out, it's great, because then it's like, okay, you treat them like a normal person, and they're gonna appreciate it more than you coming in and being all standoffish and awkward because you think you guys are on a different level. Don't treat it that way. You and I tell every customer I meet with, I'm like, listen, it doesn't matter what size this project is. I don't care how little, how big it is. I'm going to treat everybody with the same process, and I'm going to treat everybody on the same level. I don't care if we're doing a $50,000 design or we're doing a $3,500 design. They're all going to get the same treatment. They're all going to get the same options, because you have to have that consistency there. And a lot of times the people that are on that higher end of the scale appreciate that, because a lot of people don't do that to them.
Right.
They treat them differently.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about something, switch gears a little bit. This was so cool what you did. When people join Landscape Lighting Secrets, at first, there was only one person, and then 5, and then 12, and then now we've got a pretty good following. But now it's kind of like we do a post, right? We do a post and we say welcome, and we announce their name and then where they're at, so people can be like, oh, wait, that's in my city, that's in my state. And a lot of people get a lot of anxiety around this. Some people are totally fine with it. But let's talk about the time when someone joined Landscape Lighting Secrets, and I think it was the first one after you that was in Nashville. Like, they were in Nashville. We announced them. We seen that.
Yep.
How did you feel at the time when you were the only Nashville guy to now then seeing that post?
Stress level goes up. And I know that for everybody. Like, if you see somebody in your area, you're going to have that little tick of, oh shit. And every time, because even today, like every time somebody gets posted, and I know a lot of people probably do this, every time some new member gets posted, you immediately get that little stress factor, and then you look down to see where they're located and see where that competition comes in.
Yeah.
And I think that's hilarious, because it did happen to me, and that was my reaction. And then I ended up meeting the guy who ran that company. And ultimately, we met because we were having a conversation about marketing. I knew he was doing something in the same realm as what I was working with, and we had a discussion about it.
Which, by the way, I actually think I remember a question from him in the group. And even though had anxiety and stress about competition, I'm pretty sure you reached out and said, "Hey, I'm in Nashville too. If you need anything, let me know." Which
I
I
did.
was like,
I did.
"Wow, that's some big boy conversation right there." A lot of people would not be willing to do that.
I did, and we did meet, and we had a conversation about that, and just kind of went with it, and realized that our markets were somewhat the same, but maybe not directly the same. They were doing a little bit of a different system than we were as far as approach, and then and then we ended up meeting a second time because his daughter was running all of their digital ads and social ads and everything like that, and she grabbed a bunch of stock photos and they started running Facebook ads. And one of my guys brought it to my attention. They were grabbing photos off of a job that we had done south of Nashville and using it to advertise their company. And so we had to run a cease and desist on him. And he was super now like, and I say this very, very lightheartedly. He was super embarrassed about it. So I don't want that to be confused any way other than that.
No,
It was purely an accident, but I
Yep.
think it's funny to where it came, because what happened was they got into their business about a year and a half. And then he had it set up to where he had some family that was doing the actual day-to-day operations, and they chose not to continue with it, and they left and they moved out of state. So a little bit of time goes by, and then he reaches back out to me and he says, "Hey, so we have this company and we don't really know what to do with it. I don't have the means to just set something up with it. So are you interested in maybe talking about what we could do to partner together with this?" And I said, "Absolutely." So we worked out a deal where we were doing kind of a backdoor acquisition type of thing where they were porting us the leads. And then I was giving him a small commission as we would contract them, which was kind of helping him feed into some of the investment that he had put into the company because he wasn't getting much out of it anymore. And this went on for about 8 months. And then about 2 months ago, he came to me and he goes, "I just don't want to do this anymore." So I bought him. We came up with a number that worked. It was a great deal for me. And I now own Music City Outdoor Lighting. And I think it is a ridiculously marketable name for the area that I live in. So we are going to go through a rebranding process moving forward here. It's going to take a little bit of time. But Landlight Pros will be disappearing and Music City will be taking over.
Dude, that is so cool, man.
And because of that, they had a listing in downtown Franklin of south of Nashville, which is literally the most affluent. To give you an idea, the mean household income in Franklin, no, I'm sorry, not household income. The mean property value in Franklin, Tennessee is $1.5 million. Mean. Okay. We're not talking just a couple neighborhoods. Like the average cost of a house in that town is $1.5 million.
That's pretty decent.
So now I have a listing there and a listing north of Nashville. So we are going to cover the market better than anybody in our territory now because we now have 2 locations to work with.
Love it, man. Congrats. Music City Outdoor Lighting. It's such a cool story because you go from anxiety and like what's going to happen to sending a cease and desist to be like, dude, right. And you know, I know the guy too. He super good guy.
Yes.
It was unintentional, but still it happened. So you could easily at that point be like, "Oh my gosh, competition, da da da," and you just kept moving forward. You know, Brian's on here. He said competition to collaboration. Competition truly happens at the bottom. Collaboration happens at the top. I think so many people are missing out on these opportunities. Instead of complaining about the new guy in your area, what if there's an opportunity? What if they get worn out after 6 months? We've had a lot of people. That happens. Okay. Not every business. I don't know if you guys know this. Not every business in the world lasts longer than 12 months, 5 years. Like people try.
I mean,
they don't always work out.
What is the statistic? It's like 80-something% don't succeed past 5 years.
Don't make it to 5 years. Yeah. So
like,
maybe you should offer some collaboration, like, hey, maybe I can help you, right? Because you never know. And now you just scored yourself a really good deal on a lighting business that's going to give you some huge opportunities. So
absolutely.
Man, that is just, I love it so much. I hope somebody in their market does something similar.
And I love that it's come full circle, that I come from the music world to then getting into this world, to then coming back and saying, now I have a company that is labeled Music City Outdoor Lighting.
I know.
So it's like a full circle application, and it's really, really been It's been fun in that aspect. It's been a bit of a crazy year for me as far as expenses and transitions and all kinds of things. I have just had all kinds of stuff going on, but nonetheless, it is exciting, and I do see a massive growth potential with it.
I can already see a Facebook ad of you, playing the guitar, and then like, oh, hey, how are you? Eric, owner of Music City Outdoor Lighting. In fact, I'm a musician
That's
here, and also the founder of this company, or whatever.
yeah, that's already in the plans. Like that girl that does my marketing stuff, we had that conversation, and she said she jokingly made a comment that she was like, doing a crazy ad with you playing some Taylor Swift music or something like that. And I was like, don't tempt me. I will do stuff for advertising. I
Yeah,
do not. I don't care. So it may come out that way.
That's so good. Well, that's such a cool story. Congrats on it. I can't wait to see what you do with the brand and
Yeah.
and all that.
Thank you.
Another thing I want to jump to is ask about referral partners.
Yes.
So, I'll never stop talking about pricing. I'll never stop talking about referral partners. It's like one of the biggest topics. It's one of the best ways I grew my business. If you look at any successful outdoor lighting company, they all have a very strong arm with referral partners.
Yep.
A lot of people struggle with it. A lot of people just kind of they'll call on a couple people and don't get much traction with it. What has been your secret? Like, how have you been able to make that such an important part of your business?
So there's a couple different formats to look at with that. Number one is you need to realize that there are a lot of companies out there that are on the same types of jobs that you want to be on. And you have to take that from a structured approach. So we have a lot of success in the pool industry. Everybody knows that. That's kind of what I've gravitated towards. But that's not where it stops. I've got success in other industries as well. But I would say number one step is put a spreadsheet together. Go make a list of everybody in your area that are pool contractors, landscapers, custom home builders, landscape architects, interior designers. Put a spreadsheet together, get all that contact information together, and then start going through that list, because you don't realize how many people are out there. And you're exactly right. They're gonna reach out to 4 or 5 people, and then they're gonna feel like it's not working, and then they just abandoned it, and then they're sitting there, wondering why the leads aren't coming in. And we all know that that's a reality right now, because the industry, or the market in general, not just our industry, a lot of service industries is changing, because we are getting out of that post-COVID free money category, and things are starting to take that reign back. So you got to reinvent the wheel. And much like you guys had success because you hit right in, a recession time. And I think the testament to success in your world was that you built those referral relationships, so you were able to dial into that right clientele. How I've approached that is, and I see guys comment and post about this on the group a lot, and you got to get over the idea of being afraid to ask. You just got to go out there. And I can tell you the number one successful way that I have with this is every time I talk to these guys, I bring it up front. I don't sugarcoat it. I don't leave it in the back end. Is I lead in with the idea of, hey, you want me to show you how I can make you money on your next few projects as we get into this? And they go, what do you mean? And I go, well, you want to sit down and talk about that? Let me take you to lunch. Let's put this together. And then you just lay it out for them, and you show them how you can become a tool for them. You are not there to piggyback on them, even though in a grander scheme of things, that may be what you're doing, but you're really not, because you're working with what's already an established marketing machine, and you're bringing a tool to that entity. So you're expanding their business, you're expanding their offers that they give to people, and they get paid for it. So like it's win after win after win, and then they're getting money in their pocket on top of it.
Yeah, I love it.
And you build it up in that format to where they're like, oh my God, I can't lose with this.
When you were talking about, making the list and calling more than 4 people and stuff like that, I had this vision of, I remember seeing someone who's like a big YouTuber. I can't remember who it was, but big time YouTuber. And they showed their graph of views and downloads or what subscribers. I don't even remember, but like forever, for like, a couple of years, it was like my YouTube channel. That was like 60 views each video or something like that. And it was just small. And then something happened and it went up, and then all of a sudden it just spiked, and it just goes crazy. Right. And most people are not willing to be they're either not willing to be, or they run out of money. And so they're not in the game long enough to hit that spike. They're not in the game long enough to get that referral partner that gives them a $50,000 job, a $100,000 job, a $500,000 job, whatever it is, and multiple jobs throughout the year. So kudos to you for like sticking with it. Is there anything that you did other than just like determination and not giving up? Like,
persistency. I mean, I can tell you there was a number of them that it took me 6 months or more to even get in touch with somebody, or for somebody to give me a call back. You know, people think they call a time or two and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you know, we're done. And they just didn't return my calls. No, screw that. Just treat it like you treat a customer. Like, how many times are you going to call a customer if you know that that's still open-ended? Which is another point. Like, you should be continually calling those people and following up until they tell you no, we're not doing it.
Yep.
Then you can put them on a backlog list. But if they don't tell you no, keep calling.
love it.
Just like with these guys, if they don't tell you no, or you don't get a response, just keep calling.
Love it.
It's old school technology. It's putting the pavement, pounding the pavement. It's getting out and doing that, that generic door-to-door sales aspect, because that's literally what it is. You're cold calling these people. And then I think one of the things that you had in your training thing, which was really good standout, was when you call in and you try to get in touch with them and you start dialing through that, make sure that first time that you call, you ask them, when they tell you who the right person is that you're supposed to be talking to, you say, okay, and what is that person's name again? So that when they don't call you back, the next time you call them, you just say, hey, is so-and-so available? Can I get transferred to them? Now it sounds like you already had conversations with them. You bypass that gate that's up front, and you go straight to the person that you needed to be with in the first place.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Very cool. Along the lines of referral partners, you've had a lot of success with that. But I remember one time you telling the group about how you became a referral partner yourself. Because, it's kind of like, man, wait, we're paying these people. Like, all they have to do is send a text with a name and a number and intro. We're going to pay them that much money. It's like, heck yeah, we are. Because there's no risk. Like, this isn't like paying money to advertising that we don't know how well it will work. Like, it's a guarantee. It's a commission, not a guess. Now, how did you become a referral partner for someone that you're working with now?
So that comes into the category of think outside the box. And we had this discussion at the summit last year that we did when everybody was bringing in their $10,000 ideas. And it was like, what can you do to make extra money? And a little before that, I had that conversation with myself, I guess you would say. When that was brought up was around the same time that I got a phone call from a commercial developer. And, because we're listed on Google and whatnot as an outdoor lighting expert, if you will. So there's no category for landscape lighting, as we all know, which is a pain in the butt when it comes to Google. But so they reached out to me, and he was like, we're looking for some help with some parking lot pole lights. And I was like, okay, so you need some replaced, or what is it? And he was like, no, we have some projects that we need to do new installation on there. And I was like, okay. So here's the thing. Much like all of you guys, when you get a call like that, if it's something that you don't deal with or you're not familiar with, a lot of times you say, yeah, it's not really what we do. I'm sorry. Maybe try calling this person or that person. But put yourself in the seat of the pool contractor or the home builder. When somebody calls them and they say, hey, can we get this done? Do they turn around and say, yeah, we don't really do that stuff. Why don't you go and call this person? No, they work with the system that you built with them by talking to them. So I said, why don't we reverse that scenario? Because this guy just called me, and I had gotten calls like that previously. And I said, you know what? I got you. Let me make a couple phone calls. I'll put some stuff together. So I called my guy who's an electrician that I deal with that helps me on certain applications of things. And I said, hey, are you involved in this world? And he goes, yeah. I've got a guy that does all the ditching and the pole work for a lot of projects that I do with these new build smaller communities and stuff like that. And so I said, okay, you guys want in on this? And they were like, yeah. So we turned it and burned it, and we've done a few projects since then. And I can tell you that like one of them was about $350,000. And that equated to them doing the work, me subcontracting, just like the other guys would subcontract you. And then I simply did what they would do, and what we would pay them is, instead of paying out the 10% to them at the end, I ran it through my business. So now I've really inflated my, my cash flow on paper, which makes the business look better. And then I take 10% of the profits like I would to the other system. And I just basically reverse engineered the entire process. And 2024, I have made about $40,000 off of that in profit so far.
That's crazy. That's awesome. Yeah, that's honestly the definition of leverage. Like
Yes.
you're doing something, but you're not doing the work. You're not doing the hard. You're just like a connector at that point. You're, as entrepreneurs, we're problem solvers. The better you are at solving problems, the better you are at
Yep.
being an entrepreneur.
Yep.
It's a cash problem, right? Problems with team members, problems with clients, like advertising, all these different things. So it's awesome. I mean, it's so cool. That's why one of the reasons I love this group is like, we have a path for people. We have concepts we teach, but like, I never invented the reverse referral partner program thing or whatever that you did. Like, you just take a concept and make it work for something else, use
Mhm.
leverage, make some money. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of opportunity, you guys out there. That's just one example in every market where you can also be a referral partner, and that helps subsequent if leads are slow or whatever it is. Like, it's going to help your cash flow situation.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I liked about it is, much like the idea of utilizing, maintenance contracts and things like that. It's a great system to have a back end to be able to pad your account. And in essence, rather than needing to use a line of credit from a bank or something like that, if you have scenarios where you need to pull money, or let's say you have a couple weeks where things are slow and you got to dump a bunch of materials into something to finish it out and your cash flow gets upside down, then you have a system like this that can pad that account so that you can keep things like payroll and expenditures covered, and you be able to ride those waves in a much easier format. And I understand that very, very well, knowing that I've built 90% of my business through referral partners, and knowing what goes into that roller coaster of, sometimes we do a contract, but we might not finish that job for 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
And, it's great. It was a $30,000 contract, but $30,000 spread over the course of 6 to 8 months ends up not being a whole lot of money on a weekly and monthly basis.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's the only contract you have over that time frame,
Yeah.
but having those larger payouts in those increments of time where you put all that vested man hours and having the materials up front and all that sort of thing, when you've only got half that money, then that's it's tough sometimes to kind of ride that roller coaster when you get really deep in those dives.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that you do a lot of work with pool builders. I see a lot of your work is, around the pool. So you get into a lot of linear lighting.
Yes.
A lot of people are afraid to do custom stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I
We
don't
are
know. Yeah. How do you do that? How do you work with subs? How do you ensure that your conduit's still there when you've got it stubbed up or something like that? Any tips you can share with us?
Communication. I mean, over communicate everything that you possibly can, I think, is very, very important. I will say that there are some struggles in that world, and we've run into struggles over the years. We've had good and bad contractors that we've worked with. So it isn't going to be a perfect world. And you do have to understand that, the lead sources that come from these systems might be great, but you also need to understand that there is going to be a little bit more legwork and networking and communicative factors that go into that, as opposed to just getting a straight lead off of a Google source and a cold call, where you might have the availability to do that job whenever you want. Getting into this world, you're not going to have that availability. So you need to understand that there's going to be a little legwork that goes into that. But the trade-off on that is that those tickets on average for me have been trending more in that $20,000 range. So spend a bunch of money on marketing to get jobs in the, $6,000 to $10,000 range, or have much better solidified leads that you can turn on a, 80% turnover, but maybe have a little bit of more communication work involved. And the average ticket being $20,000, I'll take the latter any day, because the cash flow is much more, it's just better ultimately.
Yeah, and what I found was we would do those jobs because a lot of people were afraid to. It was kind of like red ocean, blue ocean. Like, we had our own blue ocean we were swimming in, and then we could, as long as we did a good job with our our installation, our follow-up, our service, our communication with the client, we could then convert that client 6 months to a year later, sometimes less, but 6 months to a year later to now deck out their front yard, right?
Exactly.
And you find out they have a lake house, and then they move in 3 years. So like, it's not just the job that we're doing today, it's the lifetime value, which is in a lot of cases way larger.
It's the life value of the customer. And I think people don't really think about that because everybody's always focused about the here and now, but you have to look long term.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where, you know, putting that, I think, comes back to that same scenario of like building the networks and putting, you know, pounding the pavement, you know, not taking the quick turn of, you know, just dumping a bunch of money into some digital marketing that might spit you out immediate results. That isn't, I'm not saying that's not a piece of the puzzle, but if you're not doing the other ends, which is the long-term relationships, then, you know, you're relying on spitting out a lot of money on a consistent level to see that turnover. And I really like the system of being able to work with these guys and have those leads and it not cost me a massive amount of money on the ROI.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah, I love referral partners. You know,
They're great. They make it so easy.
Yeah. Higher quality client, higher total contract value. I mean, it's just, they're just so much nicer.
Yep.
All right. I think it makes sense for us to kind of wrap up talking about outdoor audio. You coming from Music City, being there in Nashville.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because when I had my lighting business, right at the end, the last couple of years, we did some audio, but there wasn't as much talk about it. Now I feel like there's more training, there's more resources. How has that been for you, adding on outdoor audio to your business?
Fantastic. I mean, not only if you can dial into it appropriately and you know what you're doing, the installation process is really not that bad. Spend a little bit of time training to do that. Maybe that's another conversation to be had. You know, I definitely would be able to feed knowledge into that world. I have a lot of it. But it's made a big difference in the overhead of what we can offer for upselling options because the backyard entertaining world is becoming bigger and bigger as time goes on. Pools are becoming more and more popular. Just people having outdoor entertaining spaces in general. It's a very, very popular thing. So don't shy away from it is what I would say, because it's been significantly helpful for turnover for us. I would say probably 20, maybe not 20, maybe like 15% of what we do on a yearly revenue point is from outdoor audio, not the light end of it. So it's a lot more than you would think. And, you know, the numbers on that is a really, it's just a really, really good number on the turnover. So we do a lot of systems. And the biggest thing I can tell you is if you can dial into some products, like you said at the beginning of this, focus on the products, you know, understand them, and then learn your basics, understand the difference of how to calculate for ohms in, you know, and pay attention to the voltage drop that you need to deal with for wire sizing for that system. Because a lot of people just don't know the basics and they're not as complicated as what most people would assume. It's really, really not that it's not any more complicated than doing outdoor lighting if you get down to the basics of it.
Yeah, that's been my experience. Is there's a lot of similarities with the voltage drop with, you know, you have beam spread and then you have different speakers that spread out differently and sound waves and stuff like that. So, you know, you obviously, like if you have lighting, you don't want, if 4 lights are overlapping too much in one area, that area is going to be bright. If you want it bright, great. But if you don't, that's going to be a potential problem.
Right.
Same thing with audio. You know, you can space it out accordingly. Know that if you're going to overlap, there's going to be louder here and not as loud here and everything else. So it's such a cool experience. I installed it here at my house for the first time when we moved into the house, whatever that was, 4 years ago. And I love it, dude. My kids love it. My neighbors, some of them love it. But usually they're like, turn it up. You know, they'll have requests. And I'm like,
we use ours constantly. I mean, like my wife and my son are in our pool in the backyard, and I have a system that wraps around our patio space. And, you know, it's got an in-ground subwoofer. It's got 5 or 6 speakers. I don't remember how many it is, but I mean, it's great. It sounds awesome. It's just a lot of fun, and it brings a whole other level to the environment that you can work with out there. Plus, I can showcase it to customers, you know, and bring them here and have them take a look at it as well. So,
yeah, Yeah, if I was to sell it now, I'd get a little demo kit and I'd take it with me, even just on installs,
Oh,
because
yeah.
your guys get to listen to music,
Yep.
and then your customers gonna be like, "What the heck is that?"
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, and you can spend, I mean, you can spend a few grand and take care of that, and it's a worthwhile investment because you'll make that money back pretty quickly when they ask what it is, and then you can tell them, and you can upsell them right there on it, and you can add another ticket to that job that you get to come back and install that just by having it available.
Love it, man. Well, this has been fun. I really appreciate you coming on here. So many good things, man. You bought a business. You've reversed engineered the referral partner program.
Yeah,
You've done really well with the referral partner program. Just so many good things. Got to see you perform on Broadway. That was killer. It'll be cool to see what happens for you. Because I know your plan was lighting as a means to an end. Build this business to work
Mhm.
without you. Get into to support your music lifestyle. I know you've fallen in love with this too, so it'll be cool to see what the future Eric Holmgren does.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a bug. I think the long-term approach is I would love to continue. Like I just got finished reading Who Not How, so I would love to continue putting all the pieces together of the people that can be in the company, so that I can dial myself more to an owner as opposed to owner operator, and then get to where I just need to cover some networking applications and team meetings in that format and take it from there. But I say that, I'm sure I'll probably still be more involved because that's just how it goes.
That's the hardest part, is replacing ourselves and
Yeah,
letting people run with it. So, all right, man. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on here. Appreciate your friendship as well. Thanks for your support within Landscape Lighting Secrets. Just all of it. I'm grateful to know you.
absolutely.
Appreciate you showing us how to entertain on that stage that night. I
Yeah,
learned a lot.
yeah.
So
Well, I mean, I appreciate you, and I mean, if I can't say it enough, like this, being in this program has literally transformed my whole family's life, and
mm,
just what our day to days are, the comfort, how comfortable we are, everything. It is because of this system, because it taught me how to do things properly.
that's awesome, man. That's very kind of you. I appreciate you saying that. All right, guys, take notes. Listen to this one again. Learn from Eric. Appreciate you guys, and hope everyone has an awesome week. Can you hear that?
A little bit,
A little.
a little.
Yeah.
No,
Can't hear it.
no,
Oh
it
man.
didn't work.
Yeah, send us off, Eric.
Four wheels, four on the floor, lifted up in a 4x4. Telling me, brother, sing a country song. That big buck engine just humming along. The summer nights and the summer sundress got the hazel eyes you won't soon forget. Country boy just living the dream.